So we're live. So welcome to Clarity, Confidence, and Flow. Today we're going to be talking about clarity, confidence, and flow. And the day came when the risk to remain tight in a bud was more painful than the risk it took to blossom. Ooh, let's see. I think I just like closed the window. Anais Nin. So this is one of the quotes I love a lot, and it is talking about as we're changing in the world today and as the world is moving so quickly, we're constantly being called to bloom and bloom and bloom and bloom again, no matter how painful and no matter how much risk it takes to grow into our full power and to grow into our potential. We are constantly given the resources or given the opportunities to grow. And like we were talking about earlier, a little bit off camera, it is always a little mindset shift to see, okay, where is that opportunity to bloom? So today's talk is really about burning out. So, like if you're hating burning out or you're hating the fact that you're spending and it seems like you're putting in so much effort but seeing so little results, what are the fastest ways to clarity, confidence, and flow? So, before we begin, I just wanted to quickly share a little bit more about what I'm doing at the moment and also why some of the things that we're doing here is relevant to this topic. So at the moment, I'm an international speaker, author, and mentor. I run a program called the Liberated Leadership Program. So we help high achievers, entrepreneurs, and visionary corporate leaders experience breakthroughs on multiple dimensions. So this goes anywhere from the inside out activations in terms of voice, your career, and also the way that you create capital, sustainability, and flow in the world. So that includes businesses and careers. Our LL program marries strategies of business, career, and life. And we marry that with profound personal healing. So, including quantum healing, spirituality, unconscious mind work, shamanic journeys, and breath work. So, we have a best selling book called The You Only Live Once, where I share my 15-year quest of self healing through extensive studies of multiple, just like so many modalities, augmented by insights gained from my master's degree in innovation, marketing, and business. So, marrying all three components or four components of spirituality and business to be able to draw out the strengths within each leader, individual, and the leaders for the future so that we can create a world where we have harmony and peace and the most sustainable ways of growing. So, our team supports multiple thousands of visionary leaders, difference makers, impact driven entrepreneurs to build fulfilling careers and businesses that can contribute not only at their personal highest, but also highest for the world with courage, authenticity, and flow. At the moment, we have more than 30,000 community members that span across the US, Asia, Africa, Europe, and South America. One of our frameworks that we're known for is called the Yummy Framework. It stands for your unique magnetic money momentum. So we're helping leaders transform their strengths to maximize impact and magnetically attract the kind of support, clients, communities, and supporters that are necessary to bring about these changes. Our work has been seen over 300 media outlets, and we've been teaching more than 100 events in the last 2 years at festivals, conferences, even online, because this year has been majorly online. So yeah, so these are some of the things that we've been doing, and it wasn't always like this, right? Like, even though we're so grateful that we were able to not only embrace each team member's individual strengths in our business at the moment, and we're able to reach out to so many cool companies, including banks and like corporate as well as smaller communities. We're able to give a lot and do a lot of philanthropic work, and we're also able to be in so many different cultures. So it wasn't always like this. I still remember From an individual perspective, I still remember a time where a lot of these things were not accessible, especially what we were talking about earlier, especially when stepping out from corporate world into entrepreneurship and bridging that gap of, having a lot of structures and a lot of paths in place already, and then also creating that path ourselves or creating that path um, on our own. So, what I really wanted to share a little bit, or is it okay to share a little bit about my personal journey on how that why I'm so passionate about this empowerment work? Cool. So let me pull up that slide. Let's see. Okay. So I still remember, like, one of the topics that I really wanted to share is about success and flow. So our conversation today a lot about is clarity, confidence, and flow. And I remember when my success did not flow. And I remember there was still a point in my life, even though now I'm in Paris, and I actually created a lifestyle where I could actually travel and create an impact that I felt was not only my calling, but it would that I attracted and found a team of five all over all over the world that's able to also support that vision. Our success did not always flow. I still remember biting my tongue when it came to share what I had accomplished and the accomplishments that our team had done. No matter what we did and no matter how much we showed up, like, I still didn't feel like we were doing good enough. I personally, I felt like I wasn't working hard enough. I felt like we were not earning enough to sustain the team. I felt that in our personal lives or in my own personal life, I wasn't being enough. And even after 15,000 hours of experience and transformation already, and going through so many breakthroughs and so many internal journeys, because internal journeys marry the business journey, I still felt like there was something that wasn't enough. And I knew that I couldn't keep going like this because even after 5 years of doing that work, I still didn't feel like it was enough. And I knew that I couldn't, like, I had simply had enough of not being enough. And I was just, I just said enough. Right. And so when I decided that, it was I had enough of not being enough, and I decided that it was time for us to really own the changes that we're here to make and really reach in and realize the impact that we had created. We stopped playing small and realizing that, this is not just about our individual contributions into the world, but it is about a whole movement that we're here to make, and that we cannot keep playing small. And that's when we decided that we're not only going to own this work that we're doing, but we're also going to step forth in a much larger way, in a sense that we're not going to make any more excuses to not reach out to the people that we know we're meant to help, but also really, really push forth a lot of the content and the work that we're here to do. So that momentum and that conviction and that commitment, we decided to invest in ourselves. We decided to put in not only the right focus, but also get super clear on the direction. And when we focused all of our energies in that one place, invested in ourselves, invested in support to make that happen, that's when all the forms of energy was super directed in one direction. And it created a ripple effect of success that we never knew was possible. And we created a flow that was really miraculous in a lot of aspects. It was something that I call like flow not only from a physical perspective but also from a spiritual perspective or a energetic perspective. When what I mean by that is that it doesn't just feel like you're in peak performance in your life and in, like when we're talking about physical activity and athletic people, they're like, oh yeah, I'm in a flow and I'm like on this like run. But it's also in a flow when you're actually realizing that your business, your purpose, your actions, your team, everything is in flow and opportunity starts flowing in. And an example is random opportunities and random um, calls will just come to you. So, for example, we just had a call not long ago asking us to present to 1,000 people in a big bank. And that was something that we could never have possibly planned. Another time, I got a message to ask to speak at a university and to teach classes there in Singapore. And this was before I even wrote. It was a Chinese class, on pitching, and it was before I even wrote my book in Chinese, and then that catapulted that whole arm of publishing our book in Chinese and then teaching that to the class. And then recently, last week, 2 weeks ago, like on the 25th of September, I taught at a liberal arts, one of the top liberal arts schools in the US, and we're invited back to talk again and give another 2 classes in the spring semester. So things like this continue to appear in our lives. And even the fact that I'm in Paris right now was a opportunity that just presented itself. So when you're on the flow and when you are in alignment, things show up that is beyond what you could have personally planned. So just like how this year in 2020, random things has been thrown at us and required us to change and adjust, so too can the opposite happen. And you could be thrown a lot of positive things that are also causing you to change and adjust because of the magnitude of the opportunities that come your way. And so, in this conversation today, what I want to share with you is how to be aware and how to shift and what to take note of in order to be ready, like fertilizing your soil and your environment so that you are more attractive to these big quantum shifts that are related to your alignment and that is in resonance to who you are and what you're here to do. So, when I am in alignment and when my alignment is unblocked, my success flows. So, if you would like to put your hands on your heart and just say that with me and take a deep breath in. I'm just trying to unmute you so we can say it together. Okay. One, two, three. When my alignment is unblocked, my success flows. So I just want you to close your eyes and imagine for a second. What does it feel like when your alignment is unblocked? Just kind of close your eyes and come into your heart and just realize for a second, okay, like if I were to project myself into the future and realizing that every single limitation, every single concern, every single barrier to entry, barrier to take action, barrier to dream big, barrier to reach the easiest way of changing behavior, movements, or creating the change that I'm here to create, when all those barriers are melted away, what becomes possible? Whatever community you choose to be in, or whatever environment that you're choosing to contribute to, like when all of those barriers are down and all of those challenges and obstacles are melted and dissolved away, like what is possible when your alignment and when all of these, it's like locks click into place, and there's a pathway that flows into the areas of your choice, what becomes possible. So take a look at that and take a deep breath into that. And also allow yourself to project yourself 1 year from now. If you continuously take action, continuously step out of your comfort zone, commit constantly to that vision, and continuously over and over again, make the right choices, receive the right support, receive the right communities to support you, and invest in the areas of your time, your energy, your resources into the areas that really propel you in the direction of where your heart meets your soul, meets your contribution, and meets prosperity and change in the world. When all of those rivers open up, where does that take you? What becomes possible? Who would you be with? And what change do you see around you? Or what communities do you see around you? What information are you able to receive? How does your body feel and what sounds do you hear? And then whenever you're ready, just come back. I just wanted to quickly hear what you saw.
Can you hear me?
Was it? Yeah, I can.
Yeah, I guess for me, I felt a lot of magnetism towards you know, further studying like certain like yogic practices and being able to share those like with whatever groups I'm with. Um, like yoga nidra came up for me because it's been a powerful one for me. But all, and I felt that a lot of the blockages I have and why things aren't coming in is because like I'm not letting things come out, you know. And so like I think a lot of what movement needs to happen is just me putting myself in situations that have been showing up, but I've just been, feeling maybe like I'm not capable or educated in a certain way. And so like it's like the feeling that maybe there's other people that are better suited to this than me. But if I have the calling, then I am capable, you know. So I feel like that's one of the hurdles I'm working through, and like would really benefit from me from shedding and allowing myself to really like reach more people with what drives me and what like makes me well. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. So are you
Yeah.
saying that mostly what I'm hearing is that it's like you're feeling this magnetism to this path, and yet the hurdles present themselves in the little like internal doubts
Yeah.
that prevent you from just fully going for it, just
Yeah.
like blast forth towards
It's
it.
like knowing that the universe will support you if your heart is in the right place. But
Mhm.
obviously, like I've just come out of a place where I've been in a very structured role, and like I've been used to a regular income, and all of these sort of logical like things that I'm now beginning to realize that are holding me back. And I feel like yeah, I just need to develop the trust, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, the trust. Oh my gosh, this is perfect. Cool. So we're going to go into the next topic, which is about confidence.
Nice.
Perfect. All right. So the next topic that we're going to be doing is about confidence. And thank you so much for sharing that. Um, Oh yeah, just before we completely go into it, just wanted to mention that in the next, let's say, hour, almost 40 minutes, I'll do everything and I'll share everything that I can in the next hour. And then of course, if you and the best ways to basically just to recap what we're doing today is about clarity, confidence, and flow. And of course, if you are ambitious with your healing and transformation and you want to integrate this work immediately into yourself, into all of the dimensional beings that you represent, don't worry, I'll also share a way that you can do that and integrate that into your life immediately to be able to express that. So, the next topic that we're going to go into is about confidence. So, we hear this topic a lot, right? From a lot of people like, "Ah, but just be confident. Just just suck it up and be confident and get that done." And the truth is confidence actually requires a lot of change. So our next level confidence in our world, especially when we're going towards our calling, which is a completely different structure than what a linear career path is. When we're following our inner wisdom and we're following our trust, it's actually a non-linear process, just like how healing is. And it is utilizing the the pathways of the universe, of nature. And we're actually creating and developing in harmony with this universal energy that is a part of our soul. So it sounds a little esoteric, but what it really does require is that it requires us to change out of a paradigm that is predetermined. And so when you're working with creativity and when you're working with inspiration and when you're working with trust, we've got to change. And so we first of all, we've got to rise up into the position of a leader because you are no longer, especially when, no matter if you're in a company already or you've left a company or you're just a person who's surviving in the uncertain world today, we can no longer rely on other leaders and other path openers to lead the way because nobody has experienced the situation that we're experiencing now. So first of all, like all of us will rise up and it will be called to rise up into our own leadership position for self leadership. And then the second point is that eh, a leader doesn't mean that it's one person who has all the answers. And I talk a lot about this in my remote leadership program with the universities. And leadership actually means that each person is being called forth to be their own leader and also a leader within a group. So we can co-lead, and then all of the leaders within the company will go in one direction that will then allow the company to be a leader in the environment. So the most important thing to note is that when change happens, leaders change first because you've got to allow the rest of your faculties within your body or your team to follow through. So the second point that I wanted to make is that in order to change is really, really difficult because a lot of fears actually come in the way when we want to change, right? And one of the things that I wanted to present ourselves with is that whenever we have an opportunity to change, actually a lot of stress comes up and a lot of overthinking happens. And why is it that some people they can cognitively know that they need to change, but then in practice, we're always just holding on to that last straw of comfort zone, if you can relate. It's like no matter how much meditation we're doing, no matter how many, thousands and thousands of hours of personal development, or maybe even, 20,000 hours of personal development, you'll still find that to hit the next level or to really open up the limitations, that fear of that ego death, of that complete identity shedding, it's still pretty freaky. And you do, I hear that I'm seeing that you're relating to that. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's not only just weird, but it's almost as if there's some level of like that internal dissonance that happens when it's like I know it's good for me, but why can I still not do it? And so that not only requires like what we talked about earlier around internal exploration, but it also requires us to understand that our bodies and our entire being is designed to resist change, right? And we've heard this before in science, in the way that our sympathetic nervous system is created, right? We are we are programmed to have fear of change, and fear is one of the biggest blockers to change, right? And and stress is a biggest contributor to create that sympathetic nervous system to activate. And so I'm just going to share a little bit more about some of these effects of stress on our bodies and why it is that it is so difficult to change. In our webinar front page, we talked about discover the biggest fear you must resolve before bed every night. And you're straining your mindset if you're only relieving your fears with distractions and breaks. So go to bed without fear every single night. So fears build up, and fears are constantly being thrown at you, and fears can be triggered in so many different ways that if we don't resolve them, then we're going to be just having this overlay of fear upon fear without even consciously realizing it. Even with meditation and with a lot of personal clearing, we can still be holding on to vibrations of fear because it simply is in our environment in the form of information, whether that is from news that we read or just things that you hear or even people that are carrying that around us, especially if you're empathic. So stress is everywhere, right? And there's a lot of responses in our bodies that perpetuate that stress. So it creates cortisol, and then cortisol creates more stress, and your body gets into more stress. So our brains are wired to annihilate anything to do with change because we want to make sure that we're safe. So it's like, don't change. You're safe now. You're in your comfort zone. So you're super, super safe. So it's like 3 steps forward, 2 steps back. And there's a lot of physical changes that happens when we don't efficiently or effectively deal with stress. So, from a headache perspective, skins, muscles, heart, stomach, like all of these different pieces in our bodies, we can not only hold stress and hold fear, but the molecules and the cells and the tissues in our system can create the tension within us that restricts our movement. So then the limitations are not just a psychological limitation, but the whole thing becomes this physical limitation as well. And so sometimes when we're talking about, oh, why are you holding yourself so small? Why are you making yourself so small? It becomes a physical symptom in addition to a mental symptom. And it's like, oh, I need to burst forth. I need to be bigger. You've got to burst through so many different layers of symptoms now. And so to understand that, you'll realize that when you do also notice your postures, and that's why, yoga is so important to open up the posture. So at least you have the physical open, then the mind can also open that we notice and we're aware, okay, what is our body doing in this point in time? And like, how is my body reacting? So stress perpetuates stress and it shows up in many different levels. In order to understand stress on a level that, it comes in before it turns into a physical ailment or a physical symptom, we can understand it from many different layers. And in the NLP model, so one of the modalities that I'm trained in is neurolinguistics programming. So in one of the levels, which is the communication model, stress can come in or information can come in from different sources, and the filters that we have in our brains actually can magnify or completely be oblivious to the input of information that's creating a internal response, emotionally and physiologically, that affect our bodies and our mind, and that influences our clarity and our ability to make better decisions. And it also chips at the confidence if it's something that is not in alignment to your personal power. So when you get advice or you get information that creates more self doubt or overthinking or fear, as we were talking about earlier, and we don't realize that that actually induces fear because it kind of jumps through our conscious brain, it kind of like it jumps past it and goes into the unconscious, then what happens is that it still affects our physiology and it still affects our emotional state because we're just unaware of the different levels of entry points it gets into our system. So it's important to know that there's all these little things that happen that actually influence all of the doubt. So the doubt is actually the symptom, and there's many things upstream that lead to it. We receive, for example, 2 million bits of information per second every single day, right? And any bit of that information could carry some signature of fear or some signature of something that is not conducive to us feeling confident and in flow or clear. And if it isn't, then it affects a whole slew of things downstream that includes our values, our belief systems. And of course, our childhood programming can either exasperate it, it can diminish it, right? So there's a lot of things that play in our unconscious that influence the ability for us to stay clear, stay confident, and stay in flow. So typically, what a lot of therapy, psychologists, past life regression, talk, um, even shamanic practices, meditation, a lot of it is bringing awareness into what is actually happening and how can we bring even more precise awareness into what fears actually are in our systems. And especially since we're talking about it before we sleep, like being able to identify them is step one, right? And some of the fears that can come up can be either fears in the temporary, so something that is just happening in the real time, but it can also be fears that have not been resolved from a really long time ago, from childhood. And then another layer of fears, sometimes people talk about it, is it could be a genetic fear, a fear that is brought through lineages, so genetic ancestral traumas. And then there are fears that go even further back, like within DNA and in the cellular memory. So some of the fears that can come up are fear of being rejected, fear of being abandoned, fear of disconnection, right? Fear of being a failure, helpless. These are all deep wounds that there's really no shame in identifying them, because the important part, and this is something that is important for the conversation as a whole as well. The important part is to note that any amount of awareness can shift your trajectory by a complete, magnitude. So the analogy I like to make here is that if I were a ship in I'm driving in one direction, if I only changed my ship's direction by 1 degree, if I were originally going to land on one continent and I change my ship's direction in 1 degree and I continue sailing, I could be landing on a completely different continent. So, any part of this conversation today, if you're finding that one nugget that inspires you, or that gives you a little bit of a, okay, got it, like an insight, really integrate that because it could really shift your trajectory or even shift the way that you're thinking about this, even if it's slightly, and it can make a really big difference down the line. And just like that, like as we're understanding these different potential fears that are inside of us, it's important to not really judge them, but more understand that there are some automatic systems that are in play that are in our bodies that are playing themselves that create these behaviors because they're simply trained to do that. And so, failure, helplessness, defectiveness, inadequacy, inferiority, these are all programs that we unconsciously, maybe some more than others, some less than others, are constantly playing. Invalidation, fear of invalidation, fear of being unloved, fear of being dissatisfied, cheated on, humiliation, judgment, and in its absence, invalidation, ignored, insignificant. And there's so many other ones as well. So when we realize what fears are available or what fears can really hold us back and understand what are the main core fears and core wounds that are in us, and we heal those, um, then we're able to move forward. Any questions so far?
Not so much questions, but yeah, no, I completely vibe with what you're saying on all of that. Definitely things that have come up, and I guess what I've been like, I guess the more you focus on it, the more clear that and distinct that the different fears become. Because I mean, it can seem, I guess, at one point like it's just one big fear, but like it's, if you can break it down, then you can, it's like bite-sized pieces, right? It's like, okay, well, this is linked to this, this is linked to this, and a big one I realized was linked to like family, and like obviously like I'm back home at the moment, and it's like experiencing that firsthand is just, I mean, it's so powerful if you're able to really just be present and open and space for the other person. It's amazing how much that gives you as well. So yeah, it's I'm enjoying doing it. But yeah, no, that
Yeah.
I need to, I like the whole, like, before you go to sleep, like, you should let all of the fear go, because it shows up in dreams if you don't, right? I mean, it just keeps coming back, in whether it's conscious or unconscious. Um, but yeah, really looking back and reflecting, and I think will benefit me. Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. And I love what you're just bringing it back to, before we sleep. Like it's got to be resolved because the way that we sleep is exactly how we're going to wake up. And if you set an intention to resolve it, then it can resolve. I have a share that is from someone who face these fears, and the fears, it sometimes is very vulnerable to be able to face the fears and face the truth. And sometimes the fear is fear of success. More often than not, what I find with people who have a really strong altruistic desire, a lot of the fear is actually fear of being too big and being actually able to create the success that is possible. And that comes a lot with, like, ostracizing, and like there's like a lot of fears of being ostracized or being demeaned or being looked down upon because of this success, which is interesting. You're raising your hand. Yeah. Are you gonna did you want to say something, or were you just like, yeah,
Yeah,
me?
no, both. But like, I really think. Sorry for interrupting, but I think that it's also like, if you're imagining something quite big and like that's your goal, then it's like, okay, well, the fear of maybe that being something that you won't be able to manage, whether it's going to be, whether it's going to take you too much away from your center, whether it will be too much of a responsibility. I guess that's also a big fear I've come across.
Yeah, for sure. Like the fear of not being able to deliver the promises and hold on to the responsibilities that
Yeah.
comes with that growth, for sure. So, just gonna share a little story of someone who who went through this journey to face it and to grow into herself even more. Ooh, actually, let me get the sound on here. Okay, here we go. It disappeared from my screen. Oh, here it is.
Before I started working with you, I was really afraid that I would slip into depression, like clinical depression, because I had anxiety before. And at that time, I was getting the same numb feelings and the apathetic feelings that I felt years ago when I was in Canada, when I felt like materially I had everything, but there was just a lack of meaning and I guess joy and purpose. And then now I would say that I am just authentic in a pretty shameless way, just so full of joy and light. And I know this because I really feel that the people around me resonate with it. Like my boss's boss, she first of all promoted me in my role after like a few months. And she just said like I was like a breath of fresh air because I was just being myself and I was just always honest. I think that in a way, just me being myself encourages others to also break through all of the bullshit, if that makes sense.
Hello, I'm Tamara Wolfson. I'm a registered nurse and a certified health coach. I specialize in helping women attract love through evidence-based strategies that work. You know, when I would see Hani, there was just something about her. She's just like this spark that just lights up the place. And I was so happy when I actually had the opportunity to work more closely with Hani. She's so genuine. She's one of those people I feel just really comes from a place of love and service. And I've just seen that over and over again working with Hani, how she's so present and really is able to bring something to the forefront or bring something out of them that they might not, just something they didn't even recognize, but which leads to this, you know, just amazing breakthrough.
These are just two stories of two really cool clients that I worked with. And what I really wanted to share is that after working with so many different clients, I realized that not only were these fears that we just talked about present, and that these are the major contributing elements or these little ingredients to anxiety, to overthinking, to doubt, but being a super ambitious healer myself, I decided that I really wanted to find a way to deal with this on a much faster way. Because I realized that if we had to go and analyze, like we mentioned earlier, if you had to go and analyze every single fear like a pizza and cut it into different pieces and being like, okay, well, then where did this fear come from? Okay, this one, you got to trace it backwards, got to do a regression. Okay, it's from childhood when I was 4. Okay, go back in there, go heal the wound, and then come back and then like rearrange everything. And then I have to go to the next one. And then I got triggered again. Okay, go to the next one and then go heal everything and then come back again. And I just realized that that was going to be so exhaustive because there's so many triggers that are coming in our direction every single day. And if we continue doing that, especially because, for sensitive people, when you start being aware of this and you're thorough, you're going to start realizing that, gosh, like there's so much that are reoccurring fears. Not only sometimes may you be revisiting the same childhood trauma and being like, gosh, like I thought I already cleared that. Like, why is it still here? It's just like layers and layers. So of course, on one hand, right, the thing is, all right, well, patience, right? And compassion is like one way of looking at it. And then on the other hand, there's this whole thing where it's like, well, then there's got to be an easier way to do this. Why is it that there are so many fears that are reoccurring? So this is when I started looking into more options. And the main reason, actually, when I was looking at this is because I was looking for a way to support conscious entrepreneurs and conscious professionals to create more wealth from who they are. And I realized that the biggest fears that prevent people from actually creating that prosperity so that their work can be more sustainable and thrive actually has a lot of blockages. And so I looked into all kinds of ways to break through those. So obviously the first one, like I mentioned, was that approach of, okay, let's deal with this from a coach or a healing perspective. So each problem I will go and do the healing work for it and transform it. And then I realized that that was really not efficient. And so I started looking at more more thorough and more comprehensive methods of dealing with this. And that's when it brought me to shamanic journeys and breath work. And so after running like about 100 events with, anywhere between 8 people to like 150 or even more people at each event, like I realized like I was doing this work probably like 2, 3 times a week leading classes. And I still realize there were blocks and limitations within me, even though I'm running these classes and I'm helping people and I'm also clearing my own. And so I realized, okay, there's got to be a way that's even beyond that, right? Because it can't be that someone has to dedicate this much time to resolve some of these limitations. So, and don't get me wrong, like we had a lot of progress and a lot of breakthroughs and a lot of success already. I just knew that in order to scale this and in order to make this palatable for people who are super busy, who didn't have 20 minutes, an hour per day to work on this. Like we needed to make this a lot more efficient. And so I started looking at more um, higher level items that can really support. So this is some of the stuff that we found. So in order to clear symptoms and fears and blockages and limitations on the physical level, typically what the coaching industry or the healing industry or a lot of the practices in a lot of the traditions, we talk about the emotional resolutions, we talk about the subconscious resolutions, even beliefs, right? Rules and beliefs that have carried us throughout our entire lives, and dealing with these belief systems and removing them on a subconscious level. These are all really important and it's part of our work too. But what I realized that if we continuously just go from these two levels, then it's not exactly efficient, like I mentioned. So the next level is energetic alignment. And energetic alignment is approaching healing from more than two perspectives, or more than the perspective in the physical world, the non-physical world, but also it approaches it from an energetic perspective. So some people are like, well, is this Reiki? Reiki is a form of energy, and it is a form of healing, and it is utilizing the source energy to heal. So yes, like that is one of the ways in which energetic alignment can happen. However, what I realized was that there are actually receptors, just like how receptors hold enzymes, or there are receptors in our cells. There are receptors that hold our entire energetic patterns. Each belief system, each fear, each traumatic response, each limitation has a whole system. If you imagine a company, right? Like in your body, there are these like machines from like beginning to end, upstream, downstream, a whole like supply chain that creates these fear molecules or fear atoms that come to place. And so I realized that there were these whole structures that are running this entire program inside of people, and that the entire program is actually energetic, can be cleared on an energetic level. Because if we clear, when people are clearing only on the first two levels, you're just clearing the some of the systems, some of the machines within the system. You're just clearing those. But in order to eradicate the whole system and the whole program, you've got to go on a higher level to be able to clear the constructs that actually hold the whole factory that's producing these limiting beliefs in essence, right? And in totality. And so I looked at that and I realized that, okay, so we've got to clear it on that level from an energetic perspective. And then once I realized we could do that, then we started doing that so much faster. People's like entire energetic system shifted. We had people heal from a lot of physical illnesses, almost. It's like within a week, right? So the way that it works is like once you shift the energy, the body goes into this mode of recalibrating, and sometimes people actually are down for a couple of days, and then the system reboots, and then you're realigning, and then you have new information come in, and you're able to have more space energetically to move forward. So that's energetic alignment. That's already quite profound. The amount of shifts and the amount of healing that happens there, very profound. And even with that, right, I realized that I didn't just want to have and support my clients on having these energetic healings and energetic transformations, although they were so great already. But I wanted to I wanted to find the solution to the formula that is what we talked about earlier, which is when I'm unblocked, or when I'm in alignment, my success flows. I really wanted to live a life that is fitting the formula of when I'm in alignment, success flows. And what that means is that I just wanted to prove that we don't need to fight and work uphill all the time in order for success. Success should be natural. Success should be us being uniquely our authentic selves. And our abundance and our prosperity and opportunities, or whatever we're meant to be doing in the world, should come to us if we were in alignment with ourselves. And I thought to myself, you know what? I believe this, and I can cognitively believe this, and I can physically believe this, but I wanted to have that appear in our lives, and not only just our team, but I wanted it to be something that we can share with the rest of the world. So we started looking for solutions to see what other blocks, or like how can we create a lifestyle and a business style and a way of living that actually follows that philosophy. And that's when I came across the work on a matrix, quantum alignment, and soul level. I've been working with quantum machines and quantum technology and information field for a long time. And so I already knew that everything in our world was made out of energy and made out of information, and that there were higher levels of um, like there were higher levels, but so it's like a higher level of systems that hold all the systems in place. However, they're very, very, very tiny bits of information. And what I also realized was that there are actually a lot of very, very advanced quantum structures that are holding the energetic alignments in place. So, on top of the machinery, or the systems, the energetic systems that are in our bodies, they're actually higher level and more advanced quantum like structures on multiple dimensions that are um keeping the potential of an individual in place. There's a lot of reasons for that, and there are a lot of like ways that that has evolved over time. But the main point is that without being even aware of that, you would have no idea, and you would just constantly be doing this work down here and feeling that what, like it's um it's just the way it is, and I just got to be patient. And so when I got into this work and I started realizing, and also I realized that there were ways to actually clear all these blocks at a much faster speed. So we could literally clear now 300 blocks in 2 hours. And when we're clearing it on a matrix level, then all of this stuff gets shifted as well. And so when you're clearing 300 blocks on this level, a lot of this gets untangled, and it's like going through a field with a plow, and you're completely just like lifting on the soil, and so you can plant new things and you can take out the weeds so much easier because you're literally just like using quantum like adjustments to untangle everything. So that's when I realized that, look, this is something that is so cool because I actually went through it myself first. And not only did the next day did I was visibly able to see the patterns play out and be like, well, I don't have to be attached to that pattern anymore. And then just kicking patterns out one at a time. But I also realized, like, when I started doubting myself, I was able to immediately in the moment just having new tools to cast out those doubts without needing to go through the whole transformation process of, like, let's say, a shamanic journey type depth of transformation. So this is what the matrix work allows us to do. We can shortcut a lot of that. So yeah, so it's just really, really cool. Here's an example of someone who experienced it.
I really didn't know what to expect because I didn't know the content. I didn't know what it would look or feel like. This is a huge shift for me because I feel like I've been carrying around so much for so long, and it's so intense. And so to have that all set down and let go is, I believe I can operate from this place far more effectively. It feels like a deep being, deep, deep, deep being.
It's one of those things where it's like, yeah, I gained a ton. What I can say is that I'm feeling the shift, the breakthrough, the movement in real time. And it's like when you have a first bite of a delicious meal and you're like, I want more. It's like if the waiter comes and takes your steak away after your first bite and you're like, what? So I'm just like, bring it. I'm super excited because I know that it's not going anywhere. The fact that I'm feeling what I'm feeling is just the beginning, and that is so exciting.
So cute. I was just saying we're trying to keep those videos short, so sometimes they're just cut off right at the end. Um, yeah. So with those clearings, not only then was I able to feel, and not only were the clients able to feel unblocked from the limitations, but then they were also able to start feeling what flow actually um, was possible for them. So some people were saying that, you know, for 35 years, they were in this state of, so I had like this one client who was a phenomenal coach in terms of, well, he's a massage therapist slash, like he has very highly educated with the body systems and anatomy. And for 35 years, he's been working on those. But then since Corona, he had to really bring his business online. And he used to be this like amazing person who did a lot of really famous advertising as well. And so anyway, long story short, he realized that flow and ease were some of the things that he thought he had already before when during his creative days. But what he experienced after the work was that he was able to create, execute, and put into motion some of this work, some of his new creations at a much faster speed and in a way that is so much more relevant to the people who he wants to serve at this time, which is super amazing. He's a sleep coach now, and he applies all of his knowledge to support people to have better sleep. And I'm actually, yeah, so proud and also a part of his experiences. So flow comes when we are in alignment and when we don't have blocks and when we are aware where these blocks lay. And so to kind of recap so far, we have one more point coming up, which is about commitment. But to kind of recap, the first item that we talked about was understanding um, our why, right? So we talked about a little bit about, okay, having that vision and seeing that vision and being able to redirect ourselves to that vision consistently over and over again, no matter what. Secondly, we talked about fears and how many fears can show up in our way and stop us from moving forward, and being able to really clearly just see them as they are and being able to work through them on a depth that allows them to not return back is really important. And then thirdly, what we're talking about is now that we understand that fears actually are, they're birthed from the same place. If you take out that birthing area of where that fear is, creating those cortisols and that whole system that line up to that, then you're able to move more into flow and work more into flow. And then now that we're talking about flow, now that imagine like if you had the matrix works done and your entire system is completely at a reboot, reset place, and you're aware that there are actually constructs being this dimension that could influence your limitations or possibility, then you can activate those possibilities on a higher level. So, on the opposite of limitations is activations. And so, when you're able to realize that just how powerful these limitations can be, then you are finally able to conceive just how powerful flow can be activated too. If we were to create the opposite of these constructs, the opposite of these systems, and serve our flow, then how powerful can that be? If we had an opposite of a trigger and that actually sets forth a flow of energy in our systems, then we're reconstructing our entire blueprint and our template of operating to really suit and to harness the energies that are available for us, because look at how much it's blocking, right? There's got to be the complete opposite of that. Just understanding the polarity in the world and understanding the yin and the yang. So, on the other side of limitation is flow, right? And activations. So, that got me really, really excited. And then I realized that now I want to help teach people how to not only go through matrix and go through that system, but also now to learn how to really receive these forms of activations that can allow us to, just like Lego blocks, build the system within our own energetic bodies, our own light bodies, to harness that flow. Yeah. Any questions before we move on? Because just one more point.
I'm vibing with that, because I mean, it's something that like has come across in a lot of my study with like in a lot of my just self work with, you know, using psychoanalysis, and then the limits of using psychoanalysis when there's like, you know, the bigger picture of the soul. And like I like how you communicate that, because it's really like it's more obvious like when you put it in that, you know, circular diagram. Like yeah, it's sort of put that in perspective for me. So like yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah, for sure. Cool, cool, cool. All right. So, yeah, I just wanted to share a quick story about one of my favorite like clients, and well, I'm not supposed to play favorites, but one of my favorite stories about one of my clients, as well as a really good friend. Her name is Sally, and she's an incredibly gifted healer. She is someone who is almost, she is at the level of Abraham Hicks. So, and if you don't know what that means, is basically she's very tapped in and tuned in, and she's able to channel some of these healing messages. She's like a medical intuitive. And when she came to me, she was struggling with an abusive relationship with her career and her business. Her internal resistance was super, super high, even though she had these miraculous abilities. And she would get sick and have a ton of resistance, and she would burn out really quickly. And she felt this cycles of feast and famine all the time. So she would get a burst of clients or a burst of prosperity, and then she would like hide. And then she would get a burst, and then she would hide. And she told me she was really skeptical of this work, because she was already such a powerful healer herself. And she went through the process. She decided to go through the process, and she decided to allow her skepticisms to sit aside, and found that after integrating these energetic tools and this process, she has not only completely shifted her perspective, is excited about serving her clients, but she is also able to work a full day. And she hadn't actually done that in a long time, with more ease and flow than she has ever done before. I think the last time I spoke to her, she had literally created, I think, like 24x or something, her income than what she was previously earning. So she no longer sabotages her progress and lets overthinking and patterns and loops stop her visibility. She doesn't let fear stop her gifts or doubt impact who she truly is and the difference that she's truly here to make. She actually is on her way to another state right now to step into these bigger events, that she's able to show up in front of more people. She used to just do one-on-one work most of the time, and mostly online as well. So I'm really, really proud of her. So yeah, um, let's see. So the biggest problem and the most urgent problem, as we can see and as we know right now, is that it's an internal one, and it's on the quantum level as well. And especially if the constructs within us or within our systems are holding, let's say, 10, 20, 30 patterns that you can't see. So when we have those, no matter how many healing processes we do, or how many directions and angles we're approaching the issues, and how many lists and journals and meditation and yoga we're doing, sometimes certain things still don't move. And there's nothing wrong with any of those practices. They're beautiful practices. It's just that sometimes they're just, just like really like stubborn patterns. And just like how some, like when you're walking through the woods, like certain seeds like hook onto your pants, right, and they just don't come off. Some of those patterns hook on into our energetic systems, and they just don't want to come off, and there are things that keep them in there. So the cool thing is that I've been doing this work for about 15 years. My first time doing this was in 2008, and after hundreds of events, as I mentioned, I know how to condense all of this into a shift that is 2 hours. And the first session is 2 hours. And then you have a follow-up session, which removes all the false emotions that are in place. So in the first session, it's a like if I do it, would you like to hear about this session stuff? Okay, cool. So basically, like in the first session, what we do is we remove 500 blocks. So 300, well, first session, we remove 300 blocks and we run through every single possible block that are all higher level constructs. So the constructs that hold all of these blocks in place and helps you be more in line, more in touch with clarity. So the clarity and the purity that you feel after that is likened to, the clarity and the focus that you feel after a plant medicine journey, but on a completely different dimension. So it's like that plus, let's say, 12 dimensions. And so that can be done in 12 hours, 2 hours. And then the following session, which is the emotional removal. So there's like emotional overlays and interferences that is done the following session. And then with both of those, you're pretty much squeaky clean from a quantum perspective so that you can do your own work much easier, much faster if it even comes up. If you're simply just like, oh, there's a block, poo, like then you don't even have to really go into it to actually get rid of that. So, this is for you if you're ready to not just learn about how to get in alignment with your truest and highest sovereignty and success, but to actually commit to making this happen in this next month. So, it's not for you if you are just here to get information or you just want to kind of use what you have and continue doing that. But you're not really truly committed to eradicate and get rid of all of these blocks on a quantum level because real transformative and quantum energetic breakthroughs means that you're ready to step up in your life. So it does take that courage. So here's a small taste of what you'll get, right? In our group session together, we'll remove over 300 blocks on your energetic and quantum matrix level. And then after that, we're going to create a vision of where you want to be in the next 3 months. And then finally, we'll create an action plan for the most important action that you actually need to focus on in order to get your aligned success within the next couple of months. So even before January. So it's like completing 2020 and then getting that January started. And then we'll also make some personal recommendations on how and where we can make those little tweaks. So logistics, it's on Zoom, and you can also do that completely. I have people and clients listen to the audio after it and still receive the full clearing. So it doesn't have to be in person in the same time because it's quantum and it's just funky. It doesn't follow the same rules as the third dimensional world. But people sometimes prefer to be here. And if you can't make it, so the replay is always available. Yeah, so some of my colleagues charge as much as 3,000 per hour for this type of work. We're talking US dollars. And this might sound like a really big investment. And there's a huge cost to still having a lot of blockages that are affecting your health and your ability to move forward 1 year from now. Financially, right, it could cost a lot, especially if you're looking at the amount of capital investments that you have to make and also the psychology. Like some people who have psychological expenses as well as like fibromyalgia, they spend up to 30K per year on their healing, and not to mention the frustration and heartache dealing with multiple levels of limitations, like the loss of opportunity, right? The cost of the opportunity loss. So my rates are usually 1,600 per hour, and that's like one-on-one. Because my intention is to make it affordable for you to get success easily and in alignment, you have a choice to work with me at a reduced rate and in a group. Yeah, I feel so passionate about this work that I'm going to do something that is really, really, like in many regards, crazy. So if you're really committed to getting your multi-dimensional breakthrough and transformation, I want to match your commitment, which means that you'll be receiving the full 120 minutes for this group session for 555. And I want to do something even more special for you because you're showing up live and I really want you to succeed. And so if you know that you're committed to this and you know that this can help you and you know that you want to have aligned success and you want this to flow, and then I'm willing to offer this to you at 444. This is available till the end of the day today, 6 p.m. So yeah, and then the bonus as well, I want to give a little bonus. The first 3 signups, you'll get your personal quantum analysis. So I'll use my quantum machine to analyze your quantum field so that you can also have that sheet in place while we're doing sessions for those 2 hours. So yeah, you can just click the link if you want to go ahead and get that. Any questions?
No, thank you for that offer. I'd love to have a look at the page and to see like a little bit more information and stuff. And yeah, it sounds like something that would definitely. I mean, I'm all for the idea that these things sort of happen for a reason. And so like, yeah, like I'd love to be involved on that level. It's Hong Kong dollars, right, that you were talking about, or US
So
dollars?
this is US dollars.
US dollars. Okay. I obviously have to have a think about like the cost and everything, but like, yeah, I mean, it sounds like something that's very aligned with me, and yeah, it's yeah, I'm obviously, because it's way out of my paradigm of sort of thinking and understanding how these things can happen, like when you're not physically one-on-one with someone. But I guess like that's where the whole quantum work comes in, right? And it's like it's more, you don't necessarily need to be anywhere in particular. It's
Yeah, so that's a really good question. I'm sure a lot of people have the same question. So so every single person that you've heard today on those videos, they all received this from a remote perspective. None of those were physical. And this whole year, Corona year, like this whole year has all been non-physical, like non-in-person. The way that it works is that each person individually, you have a information signature. Just like how your IP address, there's an IP address for your information field. And when you're in connection, it works on 2 levels, an intention level and also consent. So if you give the consent for the machine, I have a quantum machine, and also the consent for me to work on your light body and your system, and you're following the instructions of, we have like a bunch of instructions on how to prepare for the session, then that means all of us are in a field together as a group, and then the healing happens on a group level.
I see. That's so interesting.
Yeah. So yeah, so that's really, really great. I'm really, really, really excited. And the last point, yeah, and then we're gonna jump into the last point. Actually, we're already over time, so jump into the last point, and then we're gonna close. Do you have like a couple more minutes, or do you
Yeah.
have to jump off? You do.
No, I'm
Okay.
good.
Okay, actually, let's take if we could take a quick, I actually need a bathroom break.
Okay.
Be
You go
right
for it.
back.
Yeah.
Let's play some music in the meantime. Let's see. I'll play some music in the meantime. Okay. Okay.
That's quick.
Back.
Hi.
What's that?
I said that was quick.
It was quick. Yeah. Just
Yeah.
jumped in and out. I was like, yay. Yeah. So home stretch.
Yeah.
So yeah, really, really excited to share this. And really the next one that we're doing is going to be on next week. Let me just see the date. Next one is next Wednesday. And it's going to be an evening for us because we're in Europe.
Mhm.
And it is next Wednesday at 9 p.m. Central European time. What time are you right now? Are you like at 3:40?
I think I'm Central European time. I think.
What
Yeah.
time is it now for you?
It's 3:40.
Yeah, 3:40. Okay, so it would be your, so I'm 4:40. 9
Okay.
would be your 8. So it would be like your 8 to 10 p.m.
Nice. It's a good time.
8 to 10 p.m. Yeah, your 8 to 10 p.m. would be the next one. And very likely, actually, it might be a very small group. Then we just get to work very personally with this group.
Cool.
So yeah. And then after that, basically we'll have one follow-up session and then a integration as well. So the integration actually is 6 to 8 months, meaning that to integrate these, your cells will basically open up for, once it releases everything, it will open up to hold more light. From a soul perspective, from
Mm.
a spiritual perspective, it's more light. From a quantum physical perspective, it's more energy. And
Mm.
so we can't blast you with so much light in like one go. So the integration period takes about 6 to 8 months, which means that the transformation happens in a spiral, right? So you'll go into these spirals of, and it's an upward spiral. So people talk about the dark night of soul as a downward spiral. So
Mhm.
ascension is an upward spiral.
Okay.
So what you'll experience is like you might experience similar releases in a spiral form, and because you know that you're in the spiral, you'll just wait till the second round when it comes back, and then you'll just like be able to integrate even more light, and then it'll find
Mm.
some more things that need to be released, and then you'll release it, and then you'll have more light and more light. So by the time you hit like 6 to 8 months, you're going to be fully integrating all of the constructs that it has removed from you.
Absolutely.
So yeah, so right now it's like October. We had our first first six groups like go through it in June, July, August. And some people are just like their lives right now are very different from 3 months ago.
Mm.
So the first month mark is quite significant. To the third month mark, a lot of the integrations happen as well. And sometimes it's a very personal integration. Sometimes it shows up in the third dimensional world. So it's like 12th dimension, all the dimension. Anyway, this is really confusing when you hear it for the first time. So
No,
don't
I mean,
worry.
it's resonating because it's just things are being like put together, pictures, like, yeah, it makes sense. Don't worry.
Okay, yeah, because I'm always very like weary about sharing this information because a lot of it is transmitted in my energy field as well as I'm like talking to
Yeah.
you. Like maybe you're like resonating with it, but I don't necessarily have words to describe
Yeah.
the actual
But the diagram
phenomenon that
earlier helped a
happens.
lot.
What's that?
The diagram earlier helped a lot.
Yeah, to understand the levels, right? Yeah. Okay, cool. So last point. All right. So the last point is about commitment. And I think this is important no matter where you are, what you're doing, and what happens to you from now onwards. And most people actually do not fully commit to themselves because, especially when it comes to is easily being yourself or success is you being in alignment, because most people don't believe it's true. And most people want a harder life unconsciously. Like that was one of the programs inside of your body that says actually hard work equals to success, not alignment. And so that's why sometimes it's so difficult to pull us out from it, because society and schooling and the way that we've been taught is that we really need sacrifice in order to receive. And as a result, that's the kind of the prophecy that we create for ourselves, right? Because if that's an underlying belief, then of course we're going to get burnt out. Of course it's going to be that you have to choose. Of course it's not a, of course it's going to be a binary, like, career to be this or that instead of an and statement, but we know that our realities are created by our own minds. And anyway, so most people do not commit themselves fully to it because they don't believe it's true. And also because they're half in and half out, lukewarm. Maybe someday I'll get ill, which they most always inevitably do. It's not that there was something wrong with them, but it was because of their maybe energy that had them fail. And that's why the last point that I want to make is bold commitment. Every to break through this paradigm of tough, slogging success into easeful and aligned ease and flow, we're very committed. It didn't happen by accident, and it wasn't luck, but it was their bold, unwavering, and unstoppable commitment. But we are all human. And so if you're a human, you almost always struggle with commitment issues. So would it be okay if I shared with you a tiny little story about the time in my life that I was super scared to commit to this alignment? Yeah, okay, just really quick. Um, Okay, so basically, like, I remember I was talking to the lady who first introduced my mentor, who first introduced me to this work. And at that time, I had already invested more than like 150K US dollars in my own personal transformation work. And I was just like, dude, like, I really. I had already invested so much in my business that I wasn't really willing to invest more. And the pricing at that time that I invested in this work was not what I'm offering today to our team or our group today, but it was like, in the thousands. And I didn't feel like I had the money. I didn't feel like I had the time. And I was afraid that it wouldn't work for me. I was scared to believe in myself. I was scared to believe that flow was actually possible. I felt like I just didn't have it in me. And if I failed, then I would be really, really screwed. And underneath it all, I wondered if like I was actually worth it to invest in this work. And it was very scary because I just knew that I wouldn't be able to face myself if it had not worked, and I wouldn't know, it would just be a heartbreak and agony if I didn't, yeah, if I didn't really get to of it. And so I was really scared of the potential of failure. And but the energy that my holding was just so loving and so unconditional, and so like her faith and her trust was so strong that I decided that I was going to give it a little, like I would decided I was going to give it a try, and I decided to commit. And I committed to getting the support that I needed. So not only did I do that, but I also committed to, another 10 weeks of working with her to break through to the other side. And it wasn't cheap. And I had to find the time, and I had to believe in myself. And I also had to put myself first for once. And it was really worth it, because I wouldn't be here today and giving this talk, and being in, all the things that we talked about already, like doing the work that we do today with our team, if without the support that I'd invested in. So this is why I have a question for you. On a scale of 1 to 10, how committed are you in believing in yourself and getting the aligned flow that you know that is meant to come through from you? And you can type that in the chat. 10. Okay. Good. Yeah. So I just want to leave you with this one quote, or rather a message, that alignment and flow is worth it. You're here not only for a reason, but your soul is here for a huge purpose, especially during this time in our society and in our global circumstance. There is no mistakes and no chance that you're here by, randomly. And so keep extracting that extraordinary human that's inside of you and keep sharing that with the world. And it's so worth it. So thank you so much for sharing, a bit of yourself here today, and sharing more of yourself. And yeah, it's my honor to serve you today. And yeah, I'll be available to take any questions and send some more information over. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for dedicating the last like hour and 20 minutes. I guess it's been good to get your take on everything, because obviously with everything I see that you're doing online and stuff, it's nice to hear like what your main focuses are, and like how you're like what your practices are to help people. It's really good to hear, and I'd love to see more information if you could send over the page.
Yeah, for sure. So I have the link to screenshot of the link as well. I'll just give you a quick, I'll send it to you on Insta, the screenshot of the description of what you'll get from there.
Thank you.
Cool.
Yeah, thank you so much for dedicating your time. Like,
Of
it's
course.
very
It
grateful.
was really great to reconnect.
Yeah, and keep doing what you're doing.
Maybe see you next Wednesday. All right.
later.
See you.
Bye.
Bye.